Well, hello everybody, and welcome to the next episode of The Unlikely Presenter, the podcast where we deep dive into your air quotes flaws to understand why they're actually your speaking superpower. And I am joined today by an incredibly impressive person, Dr. Clare Roberts-Molloy, who I went on to her LinkedIn to have a little look at what title I should give you, Clare, and it blew my mind how many roles you currently have. So firstly, welcome. Secondly, could you tell us what I should be referring to you as, please?
Oh, thanks, Stephanie. Thanks for inviting me on your podcast today. I call myself a midlife mindset and leadership coach, to keep it quite straightforward. I do wear a lot of hats. It confuses me, let alone everybody else. Probably have a little bit of an ADHD brain, so that's probably why. But yeah, midlife mindset and leadership coach.
Thank you so much for, well, I say clearing that up, but I'm going to dig into all of those roles that you currently do and the career journey. If anybody hasn't yet, go and look at Clare's LinkedIn and you'll 100% see what I mean. Yeah, why don't you give us a bit of an overview of what does the career journey of Clare look like? What did you start in? What are those squiggly turns? And what got you to being the mindset coach you are now?
Yeah, I love squiggly careers. Used to be called a potpourri career back in the day, and I always remember going, "I want a potpourri career one day." And yeah, that's what I've sort of grown and developed for myself. But I started out. I was at university for quite a long time because I love learning. So I was at uni for about probably best part of a decade. So I finally got a proper job in in my mid-20s, and I went into public sector research, and it was really, really interesting. And I grew in that career really, really quickly, and went from research-based into more business development roles. And that was my career for a long time, and really up until my late 30s, early 40s, that was sort of the career trajectory I was on, through a whole range of different roles, but within that research and business development type field. And then my 40th birthday started looming on the horizon, and I was in a long-term relationship that was not a positive place to be anymore. So I decided I needed to move away from that. And as I moved away from that and entered that midlife phase, it was a real catalyst for me. And that's what I always say to people. Midlife for me isn't a crisis, and I don't think it should be for other people. I really see it as a catalyst. And that's when I started developing my really squiggly career and or potpourri career, whatever, multi-passionate entrepreneur, I like to think. And that's to do all of these things. So it was like this fire was being lit inside me. Trained as a coach, I started my own charity, I launched another not-for-profit to get my teeth in, and really started doing all of these things that really interest me, light me up, and bring me joy every day.
Yeah, absolutely. I feel like we've got a lot in common there. Similar to you, I don't know why I'm calling you out, but my LinkedIn has many different roles on there, and I just love doing lots of different things. But if it lights us up and it makes us happy and it's that catalyst, I love that analogy of it. The amount of times people have said, "Oh, you've got to niche down." I'm just like, no, you can't hold me back. Tell me then a little bit more about your experience as a speaker and presenter, because we haven't mentioned this yet, and I'm going to dig in to get all the juicy details later. But you are the founder of TEDx in Wolverhampton, among many other speaking and presenting accolades. So can you tell us a bit more about what you do in this space, please?
If you'd said to very young me that I would be doing this as an adult, I wouldn't have believed it. I was incredibly shy. I mean, I can't even sort of communicate to you how shy I was. I was the kind of person that if anyone even looked at me, I would go really, really red, literally like a beetroot. And if I was out and about with my mum and someone looked at me, I'd hide under her skirt, I'd hide under her coat. I didn't want anyone even looking at me, let alone speaking to me. And I remember if we had someone come round to the house, I would hide upstairs until they'd gone. So I was really, really nervous. So the idea of standing up, speaking in front of anybody was an absolute no-go to me when I was very, very young. Then as I got into the later years of primary school, I got a bit braver, and I used to be chosen to be the narrator on a lot of things. So I had
Same here.
Yeah, so I was the narrator, and partly because I had a reading age way beyond my years, because I'm an avid reader, and so if the teachers needed something reading out, someone to do a talking spot, they always asked me. And then there was a pivotal moment, and it was in my final year of primary school, and I was the narrator for our school production of Bugsy Malone, and I came in on the wrong cue. And I sort of clashed into a song with my narration. I completely misjudged it. And it was mortifying. It was absolutely mortifying. And the teacher was like, no, Claire, sit back down. It's not yet. And I was so embarrassed. My throat closed and I could barely speak for the rest of the play. And that also changed something in me. It sort of made me lose my voice, both literally and figuratively, for quite a while. So when I went to secondary school, this fear of speaking really, really set in. And I just didn't want to do it any longer. And it just held me back. So I wasn't taking part in school productions anymore. I wasn't standing up in class presenting anymore. I had all the fears. And then when I went to university for my first degree, as I said, I was at the university for 10 years, so I have a number of degrees. But for my first degree was in psychology and management. And the management element of that required you to stand up and speak, because you were going to be a business person, and business people have to present and all of that. So I remember being in the first year, and the very first presentation I had to do was for my economics module. And I was up all night, wanting to throw up, couldn't sleep. The nerves were unreal. But I had no choice but to do it. If I wanted that degree, I needed to do it. And so slowly but surely, I started to find my confidence with it, find my voice with it, and then decided actually I really liked doing it. And then as I went through into my career, I became the person who would be trotted out to do all the presentations to clients, to go and be on panels. One of my MDs decided he needed us all to be thought leaders. And so we all had to seek out those opportunities. Which included me chairing a panel in my 20s in front of an audience of 500 people at Earl's Court. I went from being really shy, starting to find my voice, losing my voice again, and then in my 20s rediscovering the joy of speaking, and haven't stopped since. And now my kids say, "Do not let me anywhere near a microphone," even if I'm gatherings.
Yeah, a lot of that is resonating with me. If there is a microphone, I will get behind it. That is such an interesting story. Thank you for sharing. I think a lot of people can relate to that, being shy as a kid. I also was quite shy, which people don't believe. Probably not quite as shy as you've just described, but definitely I wasn't the most out there little child you've ever met. Also chosen to be the narrator. And actually, when you were telling me that story of missing the cue, which is, I mean, I guess you were 10 or 11, totally understandable thing to happen. But it even made my throat close up a little bit. I had to have a sip of water, because if that happened to us now, or even, I don't know, early 20s, you would just be able to laugh it off a little bit more. When you're 10 or 11, that is such a formative experience, especially as it sounds like you said the teacher was not shouting at you, but being loud, saying, no, and like, then everyone can see, and like, the hot face, and you think everyone's looking at you. And that, exactly. And actually, kids can be a little bit cruel at that age. And I think it's something I was just talking about on the last episode as well. There's obviously a psychology to it, which you'll know way better than me, given your degree. That it's all about being in tribes and not wanting to get rejected from tens or hundreds of thousands of years ago. So it's within us, and people don't have that children don't have that understanding that it's actually fine now. We can chill. So yeah, I can totally understand why you lost your voice for the whole of secondary school, but it's such a shame. I mean, do you honestly think that only changed after that first presentation you had to do at university? Did anything else help in secondary school time?
I did have to stand up and speak for, obviously, you do English. There are times when you had to speak, you read out in class, things like that. But it was something I always really struggled with. I could do it, but I really struggled with it. There were a few other things I think that contributed to me being sort of an unlikely presenter. One was that my dad in particular always said that children should be seen and not heard. So you weren't really encouraged to speak out either unless you were spoken to directly. So there was that. And
yeah, sorry, I shouldn't laugh at that, but I just did because my grandma used to say the exact same thing to me. And I wonder if it's a Midlands thing that they liked to say that.
Maybe. But the other thing is being born in the Midlands. So I was born and raised in Wolverhampton. I still live here now. But when I was younger, I had a really strong local accent, which is sort of mellowed out over my adult career and travelling and working in different places. But I had quite a strong accent. And even going to my secondary school, I was pointed out as having a strong accent and people would make fun of me because of it. So I think there was that other element which sort of added to this trauma of missing my cue when I was narrating, and then going to a secondary school where people would make fun of the words I would use and my accent and things like that. I think all of these things stack on top of each other.
It's interesting, yeah, because I'm from Tamworth, so not a million miles away, and my accent was really thick, but I was at a school where everyone else was in the same boat. And actually, if you didn't have the thick accent, you were almost pointed out as being like the posh one. So I at least didn't have that. But then when I went to university and turned 18, I was like, oh, okay, now people are pointing out my accent. And that, yeah, it was a bit of a factor, but interesting. Okay, so, and obviously I'm not just here to dig into the childhood trauma. The whole point is, how do we get over that? How did you get over it, Claire, so that you could become this amazing speaker, like you said? So at university, you basically had no choice, but was there anything else that you did? Did anybody help you along the way? Any advice that you could share in that space, please?
I think it was, what really helped me was, first of all, having to do it. We often wait to be confident before we take action, but it's the other way around. We gain the confidence through action. So I think not having a choice meant I had to take the action, and then realizing that the world doesn't end, and then also getting that good feedback and realizing that you do have something valid to say. My confidence grew through that. But it was also other people's confidence in me. So I had managing directors and other directors around me who believed in that I could do it. They could see that I could do it. And then when I was presenting in front of clients or chairing panels or whatever it would be, the feedback would be really, really positive. And I thought, oh, maybe I'm okay at this. And it was when I was being asked to also do it on behalf of other people. So other colleagues who weren't confident speakers, I would be speaking for that, for them. That really, it was people believing in me and giving me those opportunities. I mean, I didn't have any formal speaker training, really, maybe a little bit. We did have a leadership consultant come in one day where I was working at the time, and we're talking back in the early 2000s. So I was very much into my power suits, my stiletto heels. I'm 5'11", so stilettos would make me 6'2". I'd have my hair tied back, so I was in quite male-dominated, sectors and things. And this leadership consultant said to me that my look was too harsh. Maybe I should wear my hair down, put some more makeup on, and smile more. Yeah, but apart from that, I think that was the only sort of external input into me as a student, which wasn't particularly helpful, and I chose to ignore it.
Yeah. So. I was going to say, I hope you did. I mean, I know it wasn't that long ago. I like to try and convince myself the early 2000s wasn't that long ago. But yeah, just 25 years. But I mean, it's horrible. I mean, a lot of that is still around, not as blatantly, but that I'm really glad you chose to ignore that advice and stood strong in what you believed in you. And that I would be always my number one advice to people is like, just be you, whatever that is. If that is the power suits, the heels, the makeup, or if it's the opposite, but as long as it's authentically you and you're showing up as you want to, then go for it. I'd love to dig in now to TEDx. I mean, is there anybody on this planet who hasn't heard of TED Talks? And it's absolutely incredible that you're the founder of them in Wolverhampton. So, what made you decide to do that? And yeah, tell me that story, please.
There are lots of people who haven't heard of them. It still surprises me. So I say to people that that's what I do, and people just look at me blankly. They haven't heard of it. It's quite surprising. Now I'm currently in the process of organising my 8th consecutive event in the city, and there are still people who have never heard of it and didn't know we did it in Wolverhampton, and it's not that big a place, so it does surprise me. But yeah, there are people out there who still are still finding their way into the world of TEDx. But why I started it was I'd come across it over a decade ago, quite a while ago, and I was watching the videos and I saw something online about someone had been involved in a TEDx. So, you see the big TED brand, don't you? See the big TED Talks, the big global brand. And I thought, TEDx, what's that? And so I was, naturally curious, looked into it, and I thought, oh, they're TED events, but held locally. How'd you get into that? And then I realised that they were run by local people, ordinary people who had a passion for their local area. So I started to look into it, and saw that there was an application process for the license and all of that. But then I sat on that idea for about 2 years, but it wouldn't leave me alone. And I thought, well, if I don't do this, someone else is going to come along and do it, and I'll be really annoyed because I don't think they're going to do it as well as I will. So I just put my big girl pants on one day and just filled in the application. Then I waited and I waited. Then they came back with some questions and some clarification and things like that. Answered all of that, and then waited and waited and waited, and just thought, well, it's not going to be. Obviously, I haven't made the cut, but it was, at least I tried. And then a few days later, I got an email through to say I had been given the license. And I was like, yay, what now? It's one thing to get the license, and then it's an absolute other thing to deliver on that. But why I was really passionate and why I wanted to do it was because, as I've said, I live in Wolverhampton, and as a city, we get a lot of bad press, being the butt of a comedian's joke for many years. And if you look at league tables, quite often we're at the top of the worst lists, or very close to the top, and the bottom of the best lists. And I wanted to bring something really positive to the city, because I'm born and raised here, live here now, and I know the stories, I know the talent, I know the generosity and everything else of the people who live here. And I wanted to highlight that, and I wanted just to do something really positive and put the city on the map for the right reasons rather than the wrong reasons. So that was my motivation behind it. So I got the license, thought, oh, what now? Mentioned it to a friend of mine who was very connected within the community. She'd got large established networks. She was equally as excited as me. And she said, yeah, come on, Claire, let's go. Let's build a team. And so that's what we did. And then we held our first event in 2019, and it was absolutely phenomenal because we'd not done it before, so we didn't know what to expect. But the energy and the momentum and everything else that it built it was just amazing. And as I say, we're currently organising our 8th event.
It's funny having that idea for 2 years and then just finally, like, it was time to do it before someone beat you to it. So well done. I also think that it's so funny, isn't it, when you're like hoping, and then it finally comes through and you have the celebration, but then you're like, oh, now it's time to actually do the work. The ADHD brain can sometimes not thank you for that. Practical question for anyone I don't even know if there are any cities left in the UK that don't have TEDx's yet, but if anyone is like you thinking, I'd love to do it for my area, you said you waited. Realistically, how long was it from when you first submitted the application to it being approved?
It was somewhere between 4 and 6 months, I think. I think in my head I'd made it felt longer because you're waiting on tenterhooks for that outcome. But we're going back a number of years. I can't remember exactly. But yeah, it was...
that is a while, though.
It is a while,
You know,
but
let's
I
say it's
also,
around 6 months.
yeah, it's a global brand. We need to maintain the quality of that brand, otherwise it just loses it loses everything, doesn't it? I always say it's a little bit like if you purchase a franchise, you've got all of their brand guidelines to adhere to, their rules and regulations, their governance, all of that to adhere to, and TEDx isn't any different. So they want to make sure that they're putting that brand and that license into the right hands, who are going to deliver really high quality events for both
Yeah,
the
totally.
speakers on the stage and then also the audience who are watching it.
Yeah, definitely. Is there a minimum amount of events you have to do per year, for example?
So you reapply for the license every year. So, and you only get that license if you've proved that you've done a quality event in the preceding year. And that license is to run a TEDx event, but there are lots of other things you can do around that. So we do one event per year because it's a big undertaking. We have 9 or 12 speakers, we have people doing fireside chats, we have performers, and we're all volunteers, of course. We're all doing this voluntarily alongside everything else that we do.
Yeah, which is huge. The fact that you even have to reapply for the license every year in itself probably takes ages. What do you find are the biggest benefits to you for doing these events and being involved?
People ask me this all the time because they're like, but you don't earn any money from it. So what are the benefits? And it's really difficult to articulate unless you're there. I work with the speakers from the moment that they're selected, and the speakers who come onto the TEDx Wolverhampton stage will be at all different stages. Some may never have spoken before. Some will be more seasoned throughout their professional careers, but standing on a TEDx stage and delivering a TED talk is very different to delivering a presentation in work or being on other stages. There are different expectations of being on that stage. Everybody learns together, and I love watching that journey from the very, very beginning all the way through to them delivering it. All TEDx events are different, so everyone does it differently. But for us, all of our speakers come together, they rehearse over at least a 4 to 6 month period together. So they become this really supportive group for each other. So it's the atmosphere, it's the energy, it's the collaborations that come out of it. It's all of that. You can't put it into words and money can't buy it. And that's why we do it. We just, yeah. And then seeing the response of the audience as well. It's fantastic.
Yeah, of course. I bet it's so inspiring. I've not been to any of the events in person. Obviously, I've watched a lot of TED Talks and TEDx's online. But so 4 to 6 months of you all coming together and rehearsing is huge. I think that really highlights how long it takes to become like an incredible prepared speaker. And obviously they're already probably doing speaking before this and they know their trade. So yeah, that's quite mind-blowing. And as you say, every TEDx event is different, but from what I hear, there is a bit of a formula around what people that run these events look for in terms of a speaker. So what advice would you give to someone who's wanting to do a TEDx?
First of all, I've had people on my stage who've never ever spoken before on a stage. So I've had from that all the way up to professionals. So anybody can do it. The key for what I'm looking for and what my team are looking for is the idea that you want to get across, because TEDx is all about ideas worth spreading. So we're looking for a really great idea. It doesn't have to be a completely unique idea, but it has to be uniquely told by you. And because you're a unique individual, it will be. So it's finding the hook into that, and it's telling it in a really interesting way so that you're sharing an idea in a really interesting, engaging way. We all have this. People come up to me and say either one of two things. They have absolutely nothing to talk about. We all have stories. If you've made it to adulthood, you've probably collected a few interesting experiences along the way. And the other one is they have too many things that they want to talk about. And that's okay. I think there's no rules on only ever doing one TED Talk in your life. So it's finding what do you have, which of those different ideas is the best idea right now, which will land the best, which can you tell in the most interesting way. But anybody can be a TEDx speaker. And I think that's one of the key things for people to realise is for me, there is no hierarchy. You don't have to have been a seasoned speaker for 10 years or have all these accolades or letters after your name or any of that. If you're thinking of it, if you have something important to say, apply. What's the worst that can happen?
Is there ever anything where someone will apply and you're just like, oh, we can't, nobody wants to hear about that subject again? It's like, is there anything that you would just totally write off? And has that changed since 2019 to now? Or is everything open for grabs depending on how it's told?
Well, obviously, any of the topics that we cover on the stage have to fit within the TEDx brand guidelines. So, you're not. There are certain things that wouldn't make it through, and even if they appear on the TEDx stage, it doesn't mean that they'll be accepted by TED to go onto the YouTube channel, because that's the key. It's one thing being on the stage; it's another thing having your video accepted so that everyone can see it. So, other than those kind of things, there isn't anything that I would reject necessarily. Some of the talks that we've had on our stages have been fairly controversial, and they've worked really, really well if done properly. We do get the same subjects coming up time and time again. So if we're getting over 100 applications and we have, say, 9 or 12 speaking slots on the stage, and last year we had something like 12 applications on ADHD alone. So I'm not going to put all 12 speakers speaking on the same topic, but is someone telling that in a really different way? Someone got a slightly unique twist on that. So that's what we're looking for. So there are some topics that are much more popular than others. So think about that. The other thing is we get a lot of people wanting to tell their story of how they've had adversity and come through it to success. That isn't a bad thing. It can be really inspiring for people. But what's the unique hook in that? It can't just be, this happened to me and this is where I am. It's got to be something a little bit different.
Really great advice. Are there any TED Talks that have happened or TEDx's happened in Wolverhampton or outside that you really love that you would recommend people go and watch? Sorry to put you on the spot with this one.
No, I've got a few. Derek Sivers does a TED Talk on the TED stage, and he delivers a really impactful TED Talk in 3 minutes. So I always say to people, watch that, because that shows you the art of communication and storytelling really, really succinctly. Oh gosh, there are so many that we've had on the TEDx Wolverhampton stage. But the one that's always stuck with me was in our very first event in 2019 by a guy called Richard Burnell. So if you want to look up TEDx Wolverhampton, Richard Burnell, and have a look at his talk, again, it's a bit of a masterclass, I think. Because Richard he was selected as a speaker when he came to our very, very first meeting. He'd already written his talk and he'd already learnt it completely. He could just stand up and deliver it. I then heard him deliver that talk in every rehearsal. I then heard him deliver it on the day. I've then watched that talk multiple times. It still has impact. It still lands. It still gives me goosebumps. It still makes me giggle in all the right places. And I think one of the arts of delivering a really excellent TEDx talk is, as I've said, we rehearse a lot with our speakers. But when you hear it on that stage, it should sound as if they're saying it for the first time. It should be that naturally delivered. And that's, I think, what really lands with the audience, is when they feel that connection and like that story, that talk is being delivered just for them on that day for the first time, despite all the months of rehearsal.
Yeah, exactly. It's such good advice, though, and I completely agree. And it's hilarious how many times you have to deliver the speech until it sounds like you've never delivered it before. It's quite the oxymoron.
Yeah.
I will link both of those in the show notes. So if people want to go and watch them, go to the show notes, whatever it's called, the episode description. It's there. Amazing. Is there anything else that you would advise in the TEDx realm that I haven't yet asked that you think I really wish more people knew this, or less people did this?
As a TEDx organizer, and as I say, we're all the events are different. They're all within the same framework, but the way we then individually approach things and our whole ethos around it and how we work with our speakers and all of that, that's very different for all of the different TEDx events. So if you're looking to apply for a TEDx, research those TEDx events, find out as much as you can about them, and actually do research. Don't just bombard the TEDx organizer, because we are people and we usually have a lot of other things going on, and we have our processes in place. So I get bombarded with people sending me their applications outside of our application window. So they don't get looked at. So just I'm being brutally honest, we don't have time. We have an application process that's fair and open to everybody, and we ask everybody to apply in that window. So, but that doesn't mean everyone will be the same. So do your research, but be kind to the TEDx organizer on the other side of it. But the other thing that would be really probably beneficial for people is not just check out the TEDx event and who organises it and who the team are, but maybe reach out to some of the past speakers, because from that you'll get an understanding of what the experience of the event is from a speaker point of view. And if you're looking to be a speaker, that would probably be really useful. So if you reach out to some of the speakers, do they go, yeah, absolutely, you need to be part of this event, and these are all the reasons why? Or no, maybe apply to a different event, and these are the reasons why. So yeah, I'd always say go and speak to other TEDx speakers and find out what their experience was, because I think that's the best testimonial for any event.
Definitely. And I think it's, as you're speaking, I'm realizing how much work obviously goes into these things. I mean, I already knew that, but only really dawning on me that it's just like a few volunteers who have loads and loads of other things going on. And quite naturally, people that I imagine are the founders of these TEDx's are really busy people who do loads of things because it links. So because I was about to everyone connect with Claire afterwards. I'm sure she'll be happy to answer any of your questions. But actually, though, Claire's busy. go and speak to someone else. She'd love to connect, I'm sure.
I run workshops outside of TEDx Wolverhampton specifically to answer everybody's questions on this. So people can access me through that, yeah. Because I realised I was spending so much time just fielding questions and fielding people wanting advice. So I've set up workshops outside of TEDx Wolverhampton, so that people can have all those questions and queries and everything else answered.
And Claire, I'm just really aware, I mean, we've been chatting for ages and I've got so many more questions for you, but time is slipping away. And you're not just TEDx founder, you are so many other things. You do keynotes yourself, you're a coach, so you're speaking with people so regularly, you deliver workshops, you're a podcast host. There is so much speaking and presenting advice you can share beyond TEDx. Is there any more wisdom you'd like to impart on the podcast?
If you're starting out in your speaking journey and you want to be on stages or even in rooms to begin with, rather maybe you don't want to be on a big stage just yet, but it's be courageous. You've got to do it. If you want to get better at it, you've got to do it. You're not going to become a great speaker unless you speak. Are there local speaking clubs you can join? Are there local events you can join? Do you attend networking events so you can say to the host or the organizer, is there an opportunity for me to maybe have a 5-minute slot? Start small, but start somewhere, because unless you exercise that speaking muscle, you won't improve, you won't get better, your confidence won't grow, and those bigger stage opportunities won't be open to you.
I've said that before as well. There's no shortcut, unfortunately. There's no way we can just get really good at this without doing it. It's like stand-up comedy. So really good advice. Thank you so much for your time today. I've learned so much. I'm sure the audience have too. I can see there's some great social media clips in this as well that I cannot wait to share with the world. But yeah, it's just been a real pleasure. We'll see you next time.